Okay, so many people have been theorizing and speculating what Pokemon Legends Arceus will look like, what it could be about, and loads more things along those lines. And today I want to do the same thing but with an added twist, so sit back, relax, and let's do this. So Cyrus, as a character, is someone that I think majority of people know, but as a quick explanation, Cyrus was the evil boss of Team Galactic in Pokemon Diamond Pearl Platinum. His goals were kind of insane, but overall boiled down to him aiming to create a world without spirits, or in other words, his goal is to summon Dialga and Palkia so that he can use their powers to destroy the world, or rather the universe, and create a new one with him as the almighty god controlling it. Now this is all fine and dandy, but at the end of Pokemon Platinum, Cyrus yeets away after the whole Distortion World thing ordeal, and we don't really see him anymore besides in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon during the Rainbow Rocket episode. So now you generally know Cyrus, but what does he matter to this whole situation? Well, most people are speculating one of two things. The mysterious professor that is mentioned during the Pokemon Legends Arceus trailer, who brought the starter Pokemon to this Sinnoh region, is a well-traveled individual, and that this professor is Cyrus himself, while others are speculating that it is some early ancestor of Cyrus, perhaps. This comes from the fact that on our characters in the games, we find what looks like a Team Galactic symbol on our uniforms, as well as in the office where the starter Pokemon get shown to us. Now, I'm going to be honest and say that it is possible the symbol was originally one to represent this organization and the region rather, but that Cyrus stole it and took away from it, its original meaning, turning it into something more sinister by using it as a symbol of Team Galactic. Maybe he even has his own ideals in the original logo's meaning, like maybe he sees his ideals in it, since the goal in this game is to create the first ever Pokedex, and perhaps it resonated with Cyrus' ideals of creating his own universe, right? The first ever universe created by a human. Now, Cyrus is one of those people that people think could be a professor, but there is also speculation about a potential that we could see Cynthia. Now, why would Cynthia be, at all in this situation mentioned, right? She is a character that's the Elite Four champion, etc. in the future. Well, if you haven't noticed, within Cynthia, when we go back to Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, she's one of the characters that actually explores and goes through a lot of those ancient writings on the walls and a lot of that sort of stuff, and she's a very powerful character, actually crazily powerful and well-educated, as well as overall very knowledgeable character about the ancient past of the Sinnoh region and these weird legendaries. She knows a lot of things, right? So the potential of her having maybe ancestors, right, from the past that maybe, were the professors and the ones who built up the region is a possibility, but there's another one. See, what's interesting about these starter Pokemon, specifically the starter Pokemon that we see in Pokemon, Legends Arceus, is that they're from the three regions where we have seen Cynthia past the Sinnoh games. Now, what am I talking about? Well, we see her in Unova. That's where Oshawa's from. We see her in the Gen 2 remakes. Yes, so Heart Gold Soul Silver, she's present there as well. And then we also see her in Generation 7's Alola, and that connects well to Rowlet. So is it possible that we have a version of Cynthia, maybe an early version of her, because let's be fair, we don't really know too well about how old she is. I mean, dude, she can be super old. There are possibilities for that. Or the other option is, either she time traveled, and that's what happened, or the other option is she had ancestors, right? Ancestors, and the reason she then traveled to these other regions is because maybe her ancestors, over time told her to do these things, not maybe her grandpa, right? Or grandmother or something like that, but her parents told her the stories of them, and she decided to go explore these places for that exact reason. So that is a possibility as well. So now, to be honest, we don't know a lot, and we don't have a lot to go off of, but we can always look back at the original Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum as a good way to get a sort of indication of what might actually have been going on with Cyrus. I mean, his goals was to get Dialga and Palkia, with Arceus almost never really mentioned, except in the HQ of Veilstone City, where Cyrus has his computer, which has a report about Arceus. By reading the notes, something becomes a bit clearer. The notes don't seem to actually be notes from Cyrus himself, but possibly someone else entirely. I think Eclipse on Twitter put this together really well on this thread, so let's read through the full thread to get a general idea what's going on here. So Eclipse has this thread here going through a lot of things, but the part I want to read about is where he goes into Cyrus as a professor, or the ancestor of Cyrus. So let's read what it basically says here. Now, if the mysterious professor is an ancestor of Cyrus, as many already think, then the two logos must be connected in some way. In the future, this symbol not only is important, it doesn't exist at all. Why? It should have been preserved as part of the history of Sinnoh. Well, it continues on. It is in its place we find a symbol of Team Galactic, which seems to have taken its cue from the aesthetic of the logo and changed it into a G, which will then be used as the front for a company that apparently studies space but actually craves to reset of the universe, you know? It is possible that this ancient symbol was hidden from, posterity for a particular reason, and that it was found by Cyrus in the future, who then decided to use it as his. If that is what happened, it means that Cyrus must have seen in that symbol his own ideals or plans. But how? Well, Pokemon Legends Arceus doesn't seem to tell a story with an evil character, right? For this, we must take a step back. Let's look at Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. In the past, actually in the future of this untold story, in Diamond and Pearl, we can check Cyrus's computer in his HQ or in their HQ in Veilstone City. We discover some reports on Arceus. Problem is that Cyrus, for the entire story, thinks that the Pokemon described by those notes is Dialga and Palkia. We all know how badly it ended because of his wrong deduction, right? And what you can read here on Cyrus's computer is this right here. If a player reads Cyrus's computer, they will discover a report on the legendary Pokemon of Sinnoh. The computer reads, the creation of space. Some say the universe originated from a massive explosion. Similarly, Sinnoh is thought to have been formed by an explosion in ancient times. Needless to say, the explosion came from the power of a Pokemon. The Pokemon must have been a mythical creature that considered a deity by the ancients. Our aim is to capture the mythical Pokemon, is not to capture it, but to obtain its power. And that's basically that. And then there is talks about the Red Chain. The Pokemon of the Three Lakes and Mount Coronet are somehow connected. Capturing the Pokemon of the Lakes will free the Pokemon of Mount Coronet from the Pokemon of the Lakes. Crystals can be extracted to create a Red Chain. Using the Red Chain, the mythical Pokemon can be summoned and shackled to do as we command. So there you go, right? Now, but what's interesting is the Red Chain was meant for Arceus, not for Dialga and Palkia. That's not all. There's something weird in this story. How does Cyrus not know the legendary Pokemon described by the notes on his computer, but he's aware that by catching it with a Pokeball, its power is reduced? How does he know that by capturing the three lake Pokemon, he'll be able to obtain a special item, the Red Chain, capable of solving that power reduction problem? Simple. These researches or these papers were not carried out by Cyrus, but he only found them. It is clear from reading the notes that they belong to someone else. Just as the notes we described and saved on Cyrus's computer, the lost symbol of the village he found together with the notes was then modified and used by Team Galactic to carry out the same searches, right? That's kind of what it could have been doing here. If thanks to particular events, an old researcher discovered Arceus and decided to capture him with his invention, the Pokeball, right, it would explain how this information was reported in the notes discovered by Cyrus. I think there is no need for many explanations. The Pokemon Professor of Legends could turn out to be a villain of the game who, thanks to our research, will become aware of the legendary Arceus and addicted to its great power. He would have devised a plan to control it, since catching it is not optimal as mentioned in the notes. And there's actually something right here, specifically where it's mentioned that it will unfailingly catch any Pokemon in the wild, and he's talking about the Master Ball here, but it is not anything that I require. Unlike you trainers, I do not make Pokemon my friends or partners. Unlike other Team Galactic members, I do not use Pokemon as tools. Instead, I make the power of Pokemon my own. So yeah, it is possible that due to this tragic event of the past, where, whenever like the, Professor went after Arceus and whatnot, it could be that because of this event, the symbol used by the explorers who helped the Mad Professor's plans and the logo and all that stuff and the story of them had to be basically cancelled to prevent those same corrupt plans from being carried out in the future, basically hiding that history so it won't repeat itself, which it sort of ended up doing anyways. But for the some reason, Cyrus will be able to find the lost research and symbol, finding a way to fulfill his desire to reset the universe through divine powers. It's so strange how such an obvious thing that we've had in front of our eyes for 15 years has never been understood. The creation of space, mythical Pokemon, Red Chain. Apparently, Cyrus's plan to control the legendary Pokemon with the Red Chain was never devised by him. If all of the above is true, unaware of everything, we will be the ones that will lead to the these nefarious events, helping the creation of the original mastermind behind the Pokemon Legends Arceus games, and the one behind like these plans that Cyrus essentially completes later on. And there is another point being made here specifically by Eclipse, which is like other aspects of these games, and I'm going to talk about these at the end of the video for those who just care about the Cyrus stuff. So after reading all of that, this puts things into pretty much a very different light. If Cyrus isn't the main villain of these games, through the power of time travel or perhaps Pokemon Legends Arceus taking place in a different universe, then perhaps is Cyrus just a man continuing the work of the original mastermind, or is Cyrus that professor himself, right? It's either one of those two options. See, one thing, it's been kind of made clear by some people that these scenario games might not be set as far back in time as some of us think. Now, this can be true, but also a bit complicated to be fairly honest, since most of it comes from guessing and comparing real history to the Pokemon world, which is kind of hard to connect as people have skimmed through other Pokemon games and Pokemon media, like the anime, where mentions of the creation of Pokeballs is brought up and whatnot, but I think it's kind of hard to use like those things as a connection to this game to kind of prove when it was made. So it's kind of hard to use those as proof due to the fact that they're all somewhat disconnected from each other to some extent. Both offer some piece of information and as such, but in a grand scale of things, all of this is just scattered around and just information they have to piece together. So my point would be that we can assume these games are based on the Meiji era of Japan, due to the clothing, the buildings, and such being in tune with the era. Also, the Meiji era, basically took place from 1868 to 1912, which is the time where Japan moved away from an isolated feudal society into a more modern and industrialized place. But that didn't stop traditional Japanese values, clothing, and such to still be around. Those aspects of Japanese culture stuck around for quite a long time, actually. So the outfits we see on the Pokemon Legends, Arceus characters and our own character and pretty much like, all the stuff around us, the buildings and all that, are accurate to that specific era of time, which means it wasn't really that long ago compared to when these, these other games like Kanto games and all these other ones are based. And if, let's say, Sinnoh that we see in Pokemon Legends Arceus is actually just like give or take 100 years or so ago, it wouldn't put it too far off from, the setting for the future games, which actually may end up being very much closer to them. So what does this all mean? Well, what it means is that the possibility for these games to actually be much closer and more connected to the future games is a possibility. It means that there is always a chance that they're not as old as they seem, and that we may be able to see these characters that we've seen, in the past, or in the future rather, that we've seen. They may show up here as well, or at least their ancestors may show up as well. That's a high possibility in my honest opinion. And as mentioned, I was going to show you more of what was mentioned by Clips on Twitter. So here's what he says, and here's some of the posts he talked about. In the past, in Pokemon games, we have never worn a logo on our clothes. It's often a trait attributed to the evil teams, an important detail because there are only two paths we can take from here, right? 1. The village symbol is what this logo is, and all the new inhabitants share similar clothes to us. 2. We are people chosen for collecting information on the habitat that surrounds the village, explorers, and we wear a unique and recognizable outfit to basically make us distinct from everybody else. Also, on our garments, there are 2 symbols and not 1. Personally, I think the one similar to Team Galactic logo is reserved for those who explore under the guise of the Pokemon Professor, and the other one, in white, is the symbol of the newborn village. Now, the only moment we wear specific outfits is in the Sword and Shield DLC of the Crown Tundra, as well as the Isle of Armor, when we have to carry out exploratory research on Peony's behalf. So in summary, I think ours are unique outfits used by explorers who are tasked with completing the region's first Pokedex. Now, Pokeball, right, as we know them today, were invented before the Pokemon Red, Blue, Green adventure. Probably Silphco commercialized the modern version of it, so it was a recent technology. In Legends, wooden Pokeballs already exist, but it's not revealed to us how long they have been invented for now. If we were to discover that the creation of these old Pokeballs took place more or less around the period of the Legends, we need to find a character to attribute the invention to, who, if not the mysterious professor, since she's described as a traveler who loves to catch many Pokemon. If he were the creator of these old Pokeballs, it would explain why after all of his travels he decided to stop in a remote village and give us his Pokemon, the starters, wanting to discover Pokemon belonging to unexplored lands and trusting us with the task of creating the sketch decks, or the, first ever Pokedex. There will probably be a management mechanic for our inventory, and the presence of a traveling bird Pokemon due to the perch in Professor's room makes me think that some items can be transported directly to the village without actually having to walk there, walk back, so to say. Same thing goes for Pokemon in the team. Given the absence of the PC, digital boxes, and therefore the absence of a space to store our Pokemon, this implies a limit of 6 Pokemon. And it's good if you think about this. Having only 6 Pokemon without the ability to change them whenever we want, limited items in our inventory, wild Pokemon with hidden levels, is a big step towards increasing the difficulty of the Pokemon games and making it enjoyable given the absence of Pokemon trainers to battle with, which there does seem to be an absence of those, at least for now. Given the fact that we trainers could also be attacked during the adventure, we need to add a new trait to this game, the possibility of having our own life bar. Since having HP bar for the trainers would be weird, a more plausible option would be to have a stamina bar, right? A stamina bar works great because it could basically just be something that walks along with like a distance from us, or if we're attacked by wild Pokemon, stamina could be recovered through items like berries or through resting in certain areas near the torches as like checkpoints. No more stamina equals blackout to the village, which honestly would make a lot of sense. So yeah, all these things connect well again back to this idea of like, maybe this professor is Cyrus, or maybe this is an ancestor of his, or maybe this isn't nothing to do with Cyrus and this is just an individual that's been traveling the world, and then his research after he tries to do some crazy stuff is left behind and Cyrus finds it and exploits the hell out of it in the future games. These are all possibilities. I don't really know what the truth might be, but big thank you to Eclipse for actually putting this thread together on Twitter. I appreciate it, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all the next time. Peace.